Chapter 14, the offense of Judas Iscariot. It happened that Emmanuel and his disciples went to Bethlehem, where he taught and advised the people. However, Judas Iscariot had become disloyal to the teachings of Emmanuel and lived only for his desires. Secretly, he was collecting from Emmanuel's audiences and accumulating gold, silver, and copper in his money bag so he could live opulently. And it happened that Judah Iscariot, the son of Simeon the Pharisee, informed Emmanuel of the wrongdoings of Judas Iscariot, since he hoped to be paid for this. But Emmanuel thanked him and did not pay him with any gifts whatever. So Judah Iscariot thought of revenge because he was greedy for gold, silver, and copper. But Judas Iscariot was led into the desert by Emmanuel, where for 3 days and 3 nights he was taught by him the concept of right and wrong. So the disciple repented and forthwith followed the teaching of Emmanuel. When he returned to the city, he distributed all his possessions and collections among the poor and became a trusted disciple of Emmanuel. However, at the same time, it happened that the writings in which Judas Iscariot had reported on the teaching of Emmanuel were stolen from him. So he told Emmanuel about it. And he spoke, Truly, truly, I say to you, Judas Iscariot, you will have to suffer even greater evils than only the loss of your writings about my teachings and my life. For over 2,000 years you will be wrongly accused of betraying me because Simeon the Pharisee wants it so. But his son, Judah Iscariot, is the real culprit. Like his father, Simeon Iscariot, he is a Pharisee who is seeking my life. It is he who stole the writings from you and brought them to the scribes and Pharisees, so they can judge me accordingly and put me to death. He received 70 pieces of silver for your writings and will receive another 30 when he makes it possible to deliver me over to the executors. Truly I say to you, he will certainly succeed at that, and for 2,000 years you will innocently have to pay the penalty for that, so you will become a martyr. But write down my teaching and life story one more time, because the time will come in 2,000 years when your writings will be revealed. Until then, my teaching will be falsified, and it will become an evil sect, for which reason much blood will flow. Because the people are still not ready to comprehend my teaching and to recognize the truth. Not until 2,000 years will an insignificant man come who will recognize my teaching as truth and spread it with great courage. He will be vilified by the resulting sects and advocates of the false teachings about me and be considered a liar. And you, Judas Iscariot, will until then be innocently reviled as my betrayer, and thus be condemned as a result of the deceit of the chief priests and the ignorance of the people. But pay no attention, because the teaching of truth demands sacrifice that must be made. In their spirit, consciousness, and knowledge, the people are still not very great, so they must first bring upon themselves much guilt and error before they learn thereby to accumulate knowledge and wisdom, so that they can recognize truth. Write down my teaching and life story one more time so that all this will happen, and the knowledge of truth in people will bring forth a rich harvest. Thus my teaching will be handed down to posterity and bear fruits of the truth. Stay with me from now on. Follow me and faithfully carry out your duty as the writer of my teaching, which is also the teaching of the laws of nature, and thus the original laws of creation. Never will there be a will greater than the will of creation, which reveals itself through the laws. However, the laws of creation are valid for yesterday, today, tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, and for all time. Thus do the laws both determine and also predetermine things of the future that must happen. Chapter 15. The meaning of the parables. That same day Emmanuel went out and walked to the sea, where he sat down. Many people gathered around him, so that he stepped into a boat and sat down, and all the people stood on the shore. He talked to them in parables about various things, saying, Behold, a sower went out to sow, and while he sowed, some seeds fell on the pathway. Then the birds came and ate them up. And some fell on the rocks, where there was not much soil. And as the sun rose high, they withered, and because they had no roots, they dried out. Some fell among the thorns, and the thorns grew up and smothered them. Some fell on good ground and bore fruit, some 100-fold, some 60-fold, some 30-fold. Those who have ears, let them hear. The disciples stepped up to him and said, Why do you give your teachings to them in parables, when they do not understand them? He answered, It has been given to you to understand the secrets of the Spirit, but it has not been given to them. They certainly hear my words, but they still live and think according to the false teachings of their scribes and Pharisees. Their consciousness is unknowing and empty, so they must first learn to think. What would be better to make them come alive and think, if not by speaking in parables? Truly I say to you, life and the knowledge of truth are only valuable and good when they are obtained through one's own thinking, or through the solving of secrets provided by parables. The human being still has little knowledge and is without insight, and the laws of creation and the power of the Spirit are not yet a reality to mankind. First, mankind must learn to recognize the truth, and thus to live according to laws of creation, so as to become knowledgeable and mighty in spirit. For those who have, to them will more be given, so that they have abundance. But those who have not, from them will be taken what they have. Therefore I speak to them in parables, because with seeing eyes they do not see, and with hearing ears they do not hear, nor do they understand. And in them the prophecy of Isaiah is fulfilled, that says, With your ears you will hear, and will not understand, and with seeing eyes you will see, and not perceive. For these people are hardened in their hearts. The ears of these human beings hear poorly, and their eyes slumber, so that they will not see with their eyes, hear with their ears, understand with their minds, or comprehend the truth and the laws given by creation, thereby attaining help and knowledge. For the people of Israel are unfaithful to the laws of creation, and are accursed, and will never find peace. Their blood will be shed, because they constantly commit outrages against the laws of creation. They presume themselves above all the human races as a chosen nation, and thus as a separate race. What an evil error, and what evil presumption, for inasmuch as Israel never was a nation or a race, so was never a chosen race. Unfaithful to the laws of creation, Israel is a mass of people with an inglorious past, characterized by murder and arson. Only few fathers in the masses of these unfaithful have an honorable past and a traceable family tree. These, however, do not belong to the generation of vipers who have pledged themselves to the false Judaic faith, to the false beliefs and false teachings that they took over from Moses, who in turn stole them from the Egyptians. These few patriarchs are knowers of truth and true knowledge, and they recognize only the laws of creation. However, they have become rare in this land and can be counted on one hand. They are only a few, and no one's eyes may see them, and no one's ears may hear them. But blessed are your eyes that they see, and your ears that they hear. Truly I say to you, many prophets and righteous men have wanted to see what you see, but did not see it, and to hear what you hear, but did not hear it. So listen now to the secret of this parable about the sower. If someone hears words of truth about the Spirit or the laws and does not understand them, the evil one comes and snatches away what was sown in his mind. Those were the seeds that were sown on the pathway. The seeds that were sown on the rocks are the ones who hear the word and immediately take it up with joy. But they have no roots in themselves, so that the seeds could firmly grow. They are fickle and take offense when misery and persecution arise on account of truthfulness. The seeds that were sown among the thorns are the ones who hear the word, but the cares of the world and the deception of material riches smother truth and knowledge, and they bring forth no fruit. The seeds that were sown on good ground, are the ones who accept the word and seek and find the truth, so they can live according to the laws of truth. Thus they allow the fruit to grow and ripen, which brings forth a rich harvest. One person brings 100-fold, one person bears 100-fold, another 60-fold, and another 30-fold. These are the meanings of the parables, whose secrets must be deciphered by the people in order that they learn to think and develop insights. Nevertheless, the path towards finding wisdom and truth is long. Compliance with the laws of creation is also long, yet the laws are so obvious. The weeds among the good fruit. He put before them another parable, saying, "The spiritual kingdom is like a man who planted good seeds in his field. But when he slept, his enemy came and sowed weeds among the good seeds and went away. When the plantings grew and bore fruit, the weeds also appeared. Then the servants came to the sower and said, 'Master, did you not sow good seed in your field? Where have the weeds come from?' He spoke to them, 'An enemy did this.' Then the servants said, 'Do you want us to go out and pull up the weeds?' But he said, 'No, lest you uproot the good fruit at the same time. Let both grow together until the harvest, and around harvest time I will tell the reapers, first gather the weeds and bind them in bundles, that they may be burned, and the ashes strewn over the field, so that the soil will be nourished. But gather the good fruit and stack it for me in my barn. For behold,' said Emmanuel, 'both grow side by side, the weeds and the good fruit. The weeds hinder the good fruit from growing, yet later the weeds will become compost and nourish the ground. Were it not for the weeds being made into nourishment for the soil, the good fruit could not grow, since it needs nourishment.'" The mustard seed. He presented the people with another parable, saying, "The spiritual kingdom is like a mustard seed that a man took and sowed in his field. It is the smallest among the seeds, but when it is grown, it is bigger than all the shrubs and becomes a tree, so that the birds come from the sky and dwell in its branches." The leaven. He told the people another parable. "The spiritual kingdom is like leaven, which a woman took and mixed into 3 bushels of flour until it was thoroughly leavened." Emmanuel told the people all this in parables, and he did not talk to them without using parables, so that it would be fulfilled what was spoken by through the prophet, who says, "He will open his mouth in parables and will proclaim what has been hidden since the beginning of the world." This was so that people could learn thereby, find the truth, and recognize and follow the laws. The treasure in the field and the precious pearl. Those who have ears, let them hear. The spiritual kingdom is like a hidden treasure in the field, which a man finds and conceals, and in his joy over it he goes out and sells everything he has and buys the field. Once more, the spiritual kingdom is like a merchant who searched for fine pearls. When he found a precious pearl, he went and sold everything that he had and bought it. Again, the spiritual kingdom is like a net that was thrown into the sea and caught all kinds of fish. When it was full, the fisherman pulled it ashore, sat down, and sorted the good fish into containers, but threw the useless ones away. Such is the spiritual kingdom which rules within humans, and whose ruler is the human being. Accordingly, pay heed to the parables and learn to solve their secrets, so that you learn to think and recognize and follow the laws of creation. Have you understood all this?" And they said, "Yes." Then he said, "Therefore every scribe who has become a disciple of the spiritual knowledge and the spiritual kingdom is like the father of a household who brings out of his treasure the new and the old." The Nazareth. It happened that Emmanuel went away from there after he had finished these parables, and coming to his hometown of Nazareth, he taught in the synagogue. The people were shocked, saying, "How did he come by such wisdom and mighty works? Is he not the son of the carpenter Joseph, whose wife became pregnant by the son of a guardian angel? Is not his mother named Mary? Are not his brothers Judas, Joseph, Simeon, and Jacob? And his sisters, are they not all with us? From where does he get the wisdom? From where does he get all this wisdom and the power for his mighty works?" So they took offense at him and threatened to turn him over to the courts. But Emmanuel spoke, "A prophet is never esteemed less than in his own country and in his own house, which will prove true for all the future, as long as humanity has little knowledge and is enslaved by the false teachings of the scribes and the distorters of true scripture. So it will prove true in 2,000 years when mankind has become knowing and thinking that my actual unfalsified teaching will be revealed anew. The new prophet of that distant future will not possess so much strength and power over evil and sickness, but his knowledge will be above mine, and his revelations about my real teaching will shake the framework of the whole earth, because at his time the world will be inundated by my teachings as falsified by the scribal distorters, and will be living in a false sect that will bring death. It will be a time when wars from space begin to threaten, and many new gods will seek power to rule over the earth. Truly, truly, I say to you, the new prophet will be persecuted not only by distrustful people, as will happen to me, but also by the whole world and by many false sects that will provide many false prophets. Yet by the end of 2,000 years, the new prophet will reveal my unfalsified teaching to small groups, as I also teach to small groups of trusted friends and disciples the wisdom and knowledge and laws of the Spirit and of creation. Nevertheless, his path will be very difficult and full of obstacles, because he will begin his mission in a peace-loving country in the north, ruled by a rigid false sect based upon scriptural distortions of my teachings. Thus I prophesy, and thus it will be. And there he did not show great signs of his power, and did not make known his great wisdom, because of their disdain for the truth. Chapter 16, Herod and the Baptist. At the time that Emmanuel dwelled in Nazareth, news about him reached Herod, and he spoke to his people, "This surely is John the Baptist, who has arisen from the dead, and therefore possesses such mighty powers." For Herod had seized John, bound him, and put him into prison because of Herodias, the wife of his brother Philippus, and had him beheaded. It occurred that John reprimanded Herod, saying, "It is not good that you have taken Herodias, because you have committed adultery with her, and you have to be punished according to the law." He would have liked to kill the Baptist, but was afraid of the people, because they considered him to be a prophet. However, when Herod celebrated his birthday, the daughter of Herodias danced before them, which pleased Herod a lot. Therefore he promised with an unlawful oath that he would give her whatever she would demand of him. After that, she said, as she had been instructed by her mother, "Bring to me the head of John the Baptist on a silver platter." The daughter of Herodias cried as she said it, for she loved John the Baptist, and not just because she believed in his teaching. The king was glad that Herodias had persuaded her daughter to demand the head of John the Baptist, because this way he was not guilty in the eyes of the people, inasmuch as he had given an oath. But Herodias' daughter did not know that Herod and her mother had agreed even before the dance to demand the head of John the Baptist through her. Thus Herod sent someone and had John beheaded in prison. His head was carried in on a silver platter and given to the young girl. She kissed the brow of the head that had been cut off, cried bitterly, and said, "I did not know that love tastes so bitter." Then she brought the head of the Baptist to her mother. His disciples then came, took up the body, and buried it. Then they went to Emmanuel and told him what had happened. When Emmanuel heard this, he was overcome with fear, and he went away on a boat to a deserted area. When the people heard that, they followed him on foot from the cities. Emmanuel saw the large crowd from the water. Feeling sorry for them, he went ashore and healed their sick. The feeding of the 5,000. In the evening his disciples came to him and said, "This area is so deserted, and night is falling. Tell the people to go away, so that they can buy food and drink in the villages." Emmanuel said, "It is not necessary that they go away. Give them something to eat and drink." But they said, We have nothing here but 5 loaves of bread and 3 fish. Emmanuel said, "Bring them to me." Telling the people to sit down, he took the 5 loaves of bread and the 3 fish. Then he said some secret words, broke the loaves of bread and the fish, and gave them to his disciples, who gave them to the people. They all ate, and were filled, and saved what had been left over, 12 baskets full of morsels, and there were about 5,000 who had eaten. Walking on the sea. Soon Emmanuel asked his disciples to get into the boat and to proceed without him to the city until he could dismiss all the people. After he had sent the people away, he climbed on a small mountain by himself so that he could rest and regain his strength. In the evening he was there by himself. The disciples' boat was at that time in the middle of the sea and suffered a great deal because of the waves, because the wind was contrary and a storm was over them. During the 4th night watch, Emmanuel came towards them walking on the waves of the sea. When his disciples saw him walk on the water, they were terrified and said, "He is a ghost." They were screaming with fear. But soon Emmanuel came nearer, spoke to them, and said, "Be comforted, it is I. Do not be afraid." "Master, is it you?" Peter asked. "Truly it is I," said Emmanuel. Peter answered him, "Master, if it is you, please let me come to you on the water." Emmanuel said, "Come here to me and don't be afraid." Understand and know that the water is carrying you, and it shall carry you. Do not doubt your knowledge and ability, and the water will be a firm foundation. And Peter stepped up to the boat, walked on the water, and approached Emmanuel. But when strong thunder ripped through the howling storm, he was startled and began to sink, screaming, "Emmanuel, help me!" Emmanuel quickly went to him, stretched out his hand, and grabbed him, saying, "O you of little knowledge! Why are you startled, and why do you doubt when startled?" The power of your knowledge gives you the ability, as you have just witnessed. You trusted in my words before the thunder came, but then you were startled and began to doubt, and then the power of knowledge left you, and your ability disappeared. Never doubt in the power of the Spirit, which is part of creation itself, and therefore does not know any limits of power. Behold, there was a little bird that circled high in the sky and whistled, rejoicing about life, when a strong gust of wind came and made it waver. It suddenly doubted its power to fly, plummeted down, and was killed. Therefore never doubt the power of your spirit, and never doubt your knowledge and ability, when logic proves to you the law of creation in truth and correctness. They stepped into the boat, and Emmanuel commanded the storm to stop. It abated, and the wind ceased. Those who were in the boat marveled and said, "You are indeed a master of the Spirit, and someone who knows the laws of creation. No one like you has ever been born, nor has any prophet known to us had such power. But Emmanuel answered, I tell you, there are greater masters of spiritual power than I, and they are our distant ancestors of Patal, the mental plane close to creation. And great are they also, those who came out of space, and the greatest among them is God. And he is the spiritual ruler of 3 human races. But above him is creation, whose laws he faithfully follows and respects. Therefore he is not omnipotent, as only creation itself can be. Thus there are limits for him who allows himself to be called God, and who is above emperors and kings, as the word says. People are ignorant and immature because they consider God as creation, and follow the false teachings that were adulterated by scribal distorters. Thus, when people believe in God, they do not know about the truth of creation, because God is human, as we are. There is a difference, however, that in his consciousness and wisdom, logic and love, he is 1,000 times greater than we, and greater than all people upon this earth. But he is not creation, which is infinite and without any form. Thus, God is also a creature of the creation, which according to illogical human judgment has no beginning and no end. They sailed across the sea and went ashore at Gennesaret. When the people there became aware of him, they sent word all over the land and brought to him all who were sick. They asked him if they might only touch the hem of his garment, so that they would be healed. Thus it took place. Those that touched the hem of his garment became well. Chapter 17. The Human Commandments and the Laws of the Creation. Pharisees and scribes from Jerusalem came to Emmanuel, saying, Why do your disciples disregard the laws of the elders? He answered, Why do you violate the laws of creation by following your laws? Moses said, According to the laws of mankind, you must honor your father and your mother, but those who unjustly honor their father and mother shall die. The teaching of the laws of creation is this: You shall honor father and mother. A person who does not honor father and mother shall be expelled from his family and the society of the righteous. But you teach people to say to their father or mother, I sacrifice to the sect. Whatever is supposed to be yours, so I am free from you. Therefore you wrongly teach that people no longer need to honor their father or mother. Thus you have traded the laws of creation for your own laws and lust for power. You hypocrites, Isaiah prophesied about you accurately, saying, The people of Israel honor creation with their lips, but their heart and their knowledge are far from it. They serve their sect in vain, because they teach such falsified and deceptive beliefs, which are nothing but man-made laws. And Emmanuel called the multitude to him and said, Listen and understand. The teachings of the scribes and Pharisees are wrong and falsified, because they teach you man-made laws which are not the laws of creation. And his disciples came to him and said, Do you know that the scribes and the Pharisees took objection to your word when they heard it? They went out to witness against you and to have you killed because of your teaching. But he answered and spoke, All plants that do not live according to the laws of creation will dry up and rot. Let them, because they are the blind leading the blind. But when a blind man leads another blind man, both will fall into the ditch. Let us go away, so that the persecutors remain without booty. Peter said to him, Please interpret your speech about the plants and the blind men for us. But Emmanuel reprimanded his disciples and said, Are you also still without understanding, and therefore ignorant and doubting in recognition, comprehension, and understanding? You have been with me for a long time, but you still lack the ability to think and recognize the truth. Truly I say to you, you yourselves will do much towards falsifying my teaching in the future. With your knowledge, you barely exceed that of the other people. Haven't you realized yet that all the parables and speeches have a spiritual meaning and are therefore about the spiritual life of men? O you of little knowledge, does your understanding still not exceed the stupidity of the people? Beware, or you will see me in a false light, and accuse me of an origin that I cannot claim. This video brought to you by Fire-Breathing Alligator. Check out the products at firebreathingalligator.com. Including an alligator clip on a stick. That's the fire-breathing alligator. Long reach match. The best long reach match. You can light pilot lights and campfires, cook stoves, wood stoves. Also coming soon, hats. Great hats. These have a special rim on them to protect you from Wi-Fi and unseen waves. It really works. It's different colors. If you don't see the hats advertised yet, just send an email. Custom made. Firebreathingalligator.com